All right, for lick number 2, we're going to pick up where we left off in lick number 1 and get into the middle section of the blues progression in D. So this one is really cool. We're calling this one the Diminished Neighbor. And what that means is once we've gotten to the 4 chord, we're going to go to the sharp 4 diminished and then utilize a lot of different neighbor tones and really cool, colorful extensions. So let's pull up the track and play along. All right, so there's a lot going on in in this lick here. So we're starting off on the 4 chord, which is G7, and typical in jazz blues, we're going right to the sharp 4 diminished. And Wes would capture that in his line. So in this lick, we're kind of outlining a G7, and then we go right into a diminished scale. So that's a really nice effect, and that's something that George Benson got from him, and it was a very popular device to use at the time in blues. So what's going on there? Sometimes it's hard to wrap your head around a G-sharp diminished scale, but just remember the diminished scale is basically the same as the dominant diminished scale, also known as the half-whole scale. The diminished scale in and of itself is a whole half scale, meaning whole steps and half steps. But what's really great is that in the same way that diminished chords are symmetrical, meaning if you move every 3 frets or in patterns of minor thirds, you get the same diminished chord. So really a diminished 7th chord has 4 equal roots. That's also true for the scale. So what I mean by that is instead of thinking of a G-sharp diminished scale, that's also the same as a D diminished scale. It's the same chord, you can hear it. So what I think is a lot easier to think about when you're playing over the sharp 4 diminished is just play a diminished sound from the tonic or the root of the song. So right now we're in the key of D. If you play a diminished scale with thinking about D as the root and play consecutive whole steps and half steps, it's a lot easier to deal with. So eventually you'll find a note that will connect with the next chord, and that's what Wes was brilliant at throughout this solo. What's happening here is he's getting back to the D7 chord, so he's connecting there by starting off with a diminished, and then he lands on the 9, which is kind of an inside note around D. And he's eventually getting to the D by using 2 neighbor tones, which would be an upper neighbor, E, and a lower neighbor, a half step below where we're going, and then resolve to the tonic, D. So it's a really great pattern. So it sounds like you're just sort of, we're like, whoa, we're not sure where this is going with the diminished scale, and then all of a sudden it lands solidly on a chord tone of whatever chord you're playing on. And we'll see this device over and over again in this solo. He's really quite adept at landing on that beautiful chord tone. Also, with this turnaround, this is kind of interesting. The turnaround for the blues, this is happening in the 7th and 8th bars. We have the 1, and then this is a common chordal move to go up to the 2 chord, and then the 3 to the 6, and then finally going back to the 2 chord in measure 9. This is how Wes deals with that. First off, he plays arpeggios on the minor and creating a minor 9. which is a really great sound. So he's creating the sound of E minor 9. And then he does the same thing for F sharp. So even though it's not really in the key, he's playing an F sharp minor 9 chord, and he's also reversing the lick. So he's going up for E minor 9, and then he's going down for F sharp minor 9. That's just a really nice device. It's just so beautiful, so intelligent. And then instead of playing the B7, he's just going down a half step and playing F minor in place of that. And he's playing this great arpeggio based on F minor 11. And then back to E minor 9. So what a beautiful line. I mean, you could spend weeks on that line alone, which is just the second part of this one lick. So a lot of information here to gather.